It is 6:01. It is May 8th for the Common Council meeting here on the second floor of City Council Chambers for the City of Rhinelander. Media has been posted, agenda's been posted, media has been notified. Clerk, please take the roll call.
David Holt. Here. Stephen Jopek.
Here.
Eileen Daniel.
Here.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Here.
Gerald Anderson.
Here.
Thomas Barnett.
I am here.
Tom Kelly.
Here.
Leanne Felton.
Here.
Chris Hannes.
Here. We do have quorum. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to number 4, which would be public comment. I have a Jesse Urquhart.
I am here to discuss the Olson Lane project. There has been plenty of discussion already regarding everything about this project. Everything from the whys to the city ordinance to how the city communicates about these projects. Tonight I would like to bring it back around to the root of all of this, the price tag. The estimated cost of the project was $449,000. The final cost of the project came out to $348,000, a whopping over $100,000 in savings or under budget. The homeowner's cost dropped from an estimated $27,000 to a final cost of $24,900, a total savings of $19,000 or $2,700 per lot. This brought the residents' total responsibility for the project to $174,000. $174,000 spread across 6 residents. This project was completed 23% under budget, and the residents only saw a total reduction of $2,700 each. The city took the other $82,000 in savings. Most residents do not have $24,000 in their bank accounts to give to a city project like this. If we do go the route of a yearly payment plan, I will be 61 years old when the final payment is made. Keeping in mind that the residents will still have to pay out of our own pocket to hook up to the city water and city sewer when our current utilities fail. The whole project is simply outside our budget. The claim that having access to city water and sewer will improve the overall value of the houses or the property is simply false. And even if it was true, it's not going to increase the value of these houses by $24,000. The only one who is coming out ahead of this project is the city of Rhinelander by getting more people to pay into the water utilities. I'm hoping that the city will do the right thing and remove the $170,000 burden entirely from the 6 residents of Olson Lane, or be willing to absorb more of it and lessen the hardship on us. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Richard Ottman. If you could hit your mic.
As you know, as I stated before, I didn't even know anything was going on with the road until Mussins actually came out there and we started to dig it up, and I had to actually go out there and ask them what was going on. And then at the end of this whole thing, we found out we were supposed to pay $27,000 per lot towards it, and it was like we were blindsided because we didn't know anything about even having to pay for anything before this, and that's why one of the reasons why I signed up. I actually got the water and sewer hooked up to my house because it was only going to cost me. It's going to cost $10,000 for anybody to get hooked up. Mine was a little bit less because I got it while it was going on. So they're gonna have to pay a lot more than what I did. And one thing, the existing residents of that street, if we would have known anything about it, you would have been able to find out all this information that we've been giving you now, that we never even wanted it in the first place, because all of our septics and waters are still working. And it's just, it's going to be a hardship either way. Even if you go by the way the new stuff in the ordinance, I'm going to have to start paying right away because I'm already hooked up. And I never would have got hooked up if I would have known anything about having to pay for it outside of my land. So it's like I said, it's going to be a hardship on everybody, and we just wanted to voice our opinions about this because we were blindsided by this whole thing. So, and I thought our representatives were supposed to represent us, not the city itself. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I believe I have a Michelle Jones.
Hello. Thank you for the letter informing us of the discussion and possible action being taken. One note, there was no date of when you were going to be discussing this on the letter that was included. It just said that you were going to be doing it, but it never told us when. But as a side note, that's just a side note. Thank you for letting us repeatedly talk and complain about these special assessments. Thank you for hearing our grievances and taking actions to amend the current ordinance to allow you more options. I won't make you to listen to the grievances again. I would ask that you use these new options to help us, please. Please use your options to not charge us these special assessments. We didn't ask for, want, or need these improvements, and we can't afford them. Please allow us to only be forced to connect to these new utilities when our current systems fail. Please vote to allow us only be required to pay for the connection charge. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Any of the alders have any public comment?
I do.
Mr. Barnett?
This is from Corrine Hoffman, treasurer of the town of Pine Lake. Said, good afternoon, Tom. I am in the process of listening to the March 27th, 2023 City Council meeting and was thrown aback at the mayor stating that the town of Pine Lake did not contribute to financing the fireworks. In fact, we sent a check to the city of Rhinelander dated May 18th, 2022 for $1,000 that was for a donation for the 2022 fireworks display. And we will be sending a check out in the near future for this year's display. I wish you would correct the mayor and let him know that we do indeed donate to the display. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Okay, moving on to mayor's comments. At this point, I do not have none. Moving on to 6, city administration report. Patrick?
Nothing other than what was in the report in the packet.
Okay, moving on to presentations. Oneida Street construction update by our Public Works Director, Randy.
Thank you. As we have such a busy construction season, I do want to keep you abreast of all the activity. At our next council meeting, I'll also be including Timber Drive when we meet again. There have been no changes to the alternate route at this time. Next slide. And this is the progress we're at right now. We have torn up all the pavement up to Rives, and we have utility work going on in the white section. And then there is, Tara, if you could scroll up a little bit more, scroll down, I'm sorry then. There is a little problem we had with the alternate route down there in the lower right corner. We've had traffic that was going to the east was not stopping completely on Shepherd. And so we put up an additional 2 stop signs to try and control this. It did have a positive effect. There are still some cars that are trying to go through the intersection quickly. Other than that, Terry, you can just scroll through the pictures in, please. just random shots of what's going on. We've had a few minor hookups with providing water service to some businesses, but everyone does still have water and will. And we are moving ahead. This is storm sewer work that's now going in. We are actually about 3 days ahead of schedule. But please do not jinx that. But that is about all I have to say on our current progress. If you have any questions?
So just on that, with summer coming about and the weather getting really nice, there are a lot of children that live in that area around Shepherd and going to the park. And so just that you brought it up, I just want to make sure that people really, like, I live right over there, and people take that turn real fast, and they don't really check their intersections at all. And so just want to make sure that I'll follow up with you, Police Chief, on that, and make sure that it's being policed, because people are now like, oh, I got to get somewhere. I'm going to take Barnes and go 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And we just want to avoid that.
I should have added, there is a police presence there periodically through each day. So, no other questions? Yes, Carrie.
I'm just curious, do you have a preliminary date of when just that intersection will be?
Yeah, 3 more weeks.
3 more weeks. Perfect. Thank you.
Nothing else?
Thank you, Randy. Okay, moving on to number 8, which is ordinance, first reading of ordinance 2023-4, which is in your packet. Mr. Holt?
Yes, Holt. I will make a motion to accept the first reading of the ordinance 2023-4 special council appointment powers in regard to unfilled positions.
Joe Peck, second.
Any discussion, Mr. Holt?
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a problem with this, but I wanted to raise it as a discussion point. The 6-month window seems it might have been a placeholder in anticipation of us having a conversation about this, and our city attorney is smiling at me, so that might very well be the case. But I wanted to bring that up as a discussion item, that if there's a specific reason for that time frame, if it needs to be modified, if somebody wants it to be modified, etc. Thanks.
Ms. Daniel?
Yeah, I would agree with Mr. Holt that 6 months seems like an excessive amount of time, mostly because any position that stays vacant on any of these unfilled positions for that length of time seems excessive. That's just.
Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, I would agree on that it should be a shorter time, maybe 3 months, but it seems like there ought to be some kind of requirement in here that we be notified when these vacancies occur. I mean, how are we going to know that the 3 months started and ended, or 6 months, or whatever?
Mr. Holt?
Yeah, this question for our city attorney. Steve, was there a particular reason for that time frame that we should be aware of if we're going to discuss modifying it?
Yeah, I use the time frame based on several factors. The first factor is most of the appointments are for 2 or 3 years. So 6 months is not, in a 3-year term, a very long period of time. The second factor is we generally are 1 month into it before we ever really, to get to Gerald's question, realize that we really don't have an appointment, we've got to get one. So it really was, the whole concept was, I was thinking somewhere between 3 and 6 months. I just took the outside one, you picked out, picked the outside one as but I wouldn't go any less than 3 months, because I think you really do have people, well, I'll get back to you and I'll let you know. I got to talk to my spouse, or let me look if my schedule allows. So you really can easily get into 2 months before you even know what's going on.
Yep. I agree. That's very reasonable. And I also think that this is potentially something that we're going to change, but not really even have that much of an issue in overall. It's very likely. Bad cases tend to make bad policy. Hard cases make bad policy if you want to make a change to an ordinance simply because of one event, right? But I do think that 3 months probably is reasonable, given that this is only a fail-safe against what we just witnessed happening and are concerned will continue to happen.
Mr. Jopek?
I'd like to express and follow out in the wake of Mr. Anderson on the idea of being notified, like having, because we weren't really aware that there was an appointment issue. We got an email, or I'd gotten an email, a few months prior, but it wasn't fully clear, especially to new council members, what committees there are and what positions are coming open. And so just to be aware of that, so that when we get into that process, like, we're aware of how much time has in fact passed. I do think that is a valid thing where we need to be notified of when and like Mr. Sorensen said, is like sometimes it's a month before we catch it, and then we should be notified at the next meeting that an appointment needs to be made for that. I think that's something that is suitable.
Yeah, what I would recommend is, and this would be an ordinance, is that you create a master schedule that shows every single city appointment. It shows every single term, and that it be available on the web, and then you all are responsible for looking at the web. I mean, you don't have to be baby fed, but right now it'd be almost impossible to find it all. But I think that as a policy, you could suggest to the city clerk that he put together this kind of matrix that you could observe on a period, and it would help. I can't tell you in the 4 years I've been here, often I've had someone say, do I have an appointment I'm supposed to make? And then we got to look it up to see where it's at. But I think that the administration has discussed it from the point of view that once we put that matrix together, I don't think you'll have the problem, Mr. Anderson, of not knowing when those appointments are up. And I think that'll also make a more responsible council. And my recommendation, if you want to change, would be to change the first period to 3 months, but I would leave the second period to just an additional 3 months, because I think it's a reasonable period of time. But that's up to you, not me.
I defer to Austin, the city clerk.
So I've actually already created that because I got tired of having to go through old minutes from years and years ago and tracking down this information. I tracked down every single board that we have that's currently active, when they were appointed, how many terms they have, links back to when they were appointed and everything. So I do have it already available and cleaned up and easily to go through. I can just put it on the website if you'd like.
Mr. Anderson?
I move to change paragraph 1, first line, to read 3 instead of 6 months.
Hold second.
Just as clarification, Mrs. Sorensen, since it's only a first reading, is that appropriate technically, or?
Sure, I mean, that's
Okay.
what'll be sent to the second reading. They can make more amendments the second time around if they want.
Any discussion on the amendment? Not seeing, well, it's the first. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain? Amendment passes. Moving back to original motion. Any other discussion? Not seeing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? First reading passes. Moving on to 9A, which is unfinished business of discuss library board appointments. I defer to Steve Sorensen.
Hi. I know, what you had me do was review the bylaws of the library and their not only their bylaws, but also their organizational documents. And the way it reads is that it's a mayoral appointment. There's no council approval under the current way it's written. Again, you could change the ordinance, but the way it's written right now, it's purely a mayoral appointment. It doesn't even have to come to the council. Obviously, the mayor should let the council know who's been appointed, but that's not even required under the current bylaws. And if you wanted to adjust the bylaws, my recommendation would be that you take it to the library board and give them an opportunity to discuss their own bylaws, and then perhaps come back here and have an open discussion. But I think it's a perfect opportunity from when I reviewed those bylaws, and that maybe the 21st century should take a look at some of those, because libraries are a lot different than they used to be, and it's probably a good time. And plus, integration with interlibrary modems and things like that should probably be somewhere in their bylaws also. That's just my 2 cents worth. I think that's what you wanted from me, Mayor, correct? Joe?
Not seeing any other discussion. Moving on to 10A, discuss and/or action a common council meeting minutes from April 24th.
Dan, you make a motion to accept the common council meeting minutes from April 24th, 2023.
Helton, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
By Mr. Holt. Meeting minutes approved. Moving on to 10B, discuss and/or action of bills and claims for $3,271,447.22.
Daniel, make a motion to accept bills and claims in the amount of $3,271,447.22.
Hold second.
Any discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Tom Kelly,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 10C, discuss and/or action of Olson Lane special assessment. Austin, so just to make sure, we did email all the aldermen and all the residents and send certified mail to them, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Open the floor to this Mr. Jopek.
I'm going to try and not be super long-winded here. I'm just going to put out my viewpoints and my arguments and let you wrestle with them as you will. I'm going to argue that the individuals should not be charged at all for the total of the special assessment, and only charge the hookup fee at the time of the failure of their sewage septic. These are the following reasons, and I won't go all the way in, although I do have secondary points if you want to know them. The 3 points I have are: first, the benefit of the project is unclear, at least to me and to the properties. The properties could benefit from the idea of being connected to the sewer or water. The property value of private wells septic is debated. All of this is debated. I dug into it. I asked realtors. I went online, looked at properties, and it's outright contested. And so the benefit to these properties, at least monetarily, is lacking. My second point is that only one property requested this hookup, and that was the closest to Lincoln Street project, and it's good that they did. It's their right and our obligation. However it played out, it was explained as a benefit overall to include the remainder of the road in this project, and that is unclear at this point. My final point, and again I have secondary and tertiary if you want to hear them, is that the project itself has an unclear end state. When I asked, when this first started, what the city was trying to achieve in doing this, there was no clear response, no clear understanding. Just somebody had asked for it. We are statutorily required to provide that service. But beyond that, the laying of the infrastructure for the properties was unclear. And I asked about the cul-de-sac, the dead end on Olson Lane, and what future development could possibly be there. And there is none, at least currently that I've heard. Typically, special assessments are split among the benefiting populace, and a lot of the time, at least what I've seen reading up on this, is that the populace being significant enough to reduce the overall cost, and the benefit being great enough for everybody that the cost is manageable to households. A lot of the case law that I'm reading up on and I'm looking into, not that I'm a lawyer and I'm not going to pretend I am, shows that typically we're talking millions of dollars, but we're also talking loads and loads of people. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. It typically indicates this case law, and I can give you the references, also indicate that the projects of large caliber, such as the ones in the cases, were split between contemporary existing households and businesses, and then the rest of the funding kept for later development. But again, that comes back to my first point in that, or my third point, in that we do not have a development in state for this project, and therefore these 7 households are being punished for an action done by the city. I believe that they should pay the hookup fee when the time comes that their septic fails and they are statutorily required because we have given them that, but otherwise I do not feel that these 7 households should be charged the $24,000.
Mr. Anderson?
Well, I believe that the provision of water and sewer service does benefit the properties, and that the owners should contribute to the expense in some way through the assessment process in one form or another. The problem is figuring out something that sounds reasonable. My proposal would be to reduce the amount from an apportioned 50% to 20% and give them 10 years to pay with an appropriate rate of interest. That gives a much more reasonable sounding amount, something just under $10,000 or $1,000 per year plus interest. But we can't do that because our existing ordinance limits us. And as I have said in the past, when we're amending codified ordinances, we should make all the revisions that we need at one time. One of the things we failed to do last month was to update the existing ordinance when we added onto it. Specifically, I believe we needed to change the provisions regarding the maximum number of installments and the applicable interest rate. 12% seems preposterous any time in recent decades. And it makes more sense, I think, to pay the interest rate to something like 3% above what the city is currently paying on its debt, or some figure like that that would change according to the interest rate environment. In limiting, the present ordinance limits it to 8 installments on assessments exceeding $2,500. Scarcely any assessment these days is likely to be more than $2,500, I would think. So we need to increase that number and increase the number of installments proportionally. I guess that seems like our goal is to come up with something that is fair both to the city and to the people on Olson Lane, and something that people can reasonably expect to pay at some point. The $24,000 does sound prohibitive that way, and that's because construction costs have gone up so much since this ordinance was written, obviously, that we have to deal with that by changing the provisions in our previous ordinance.
Mr. Barnett?
I would like to ask Mr. Jopek, Alderperson Jopek, to make a motion.
Mr. Jopek?
I want to come back to the point that Mr. Anderson brought up about the cost or the benefit to the property. Again, that comes back to the individual. So talking to all the realtors, or the realtors that I called and asked questions about septic versus city, a lot of them said it's all going to depend on the customer. It's all going to depend on what they want, and which these 7 have clearly stated that either A, it's not their preference, or B, they've already hooked up because they were told to. And so for me, again, the debate about the benefit to the property is largely subjective. It's not like, it is not a clear-cut thing. I spent probably an hour and a half this weekend trying to find some level of authoritative statement on this, and that's just not present. Again, typically, these kinds of projects connect larger portions of cities, larger portions of land within the boundary of a city that would then benefit the people themselves, but also the larger populace. In this case, that is non-existent. What is happening is the city, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but when we started this conversation, I asked what was the reason we did this, and it was stated that it was a benefit to the city. And so if we are going to live by it being a benefit to the city, we need to live by the fact that we're the ones who approved this, and that these 7 households should not have to compromise with the city government as far as a project that was not something they asked for and does not ultimately benefit them in the future at all. And so unless there's development that somehow pops up somewhere that this could be really great and they could do some cost sharing there, I do not feel on any level whatsoever that it is fair for these 7 households to bear any of the burden of this project that was put onto them. And so now it is done, and the best that we can do for these constituents is to just allow them to pay the hookup fee when the time comes.
Mr. Holt?
I don't disagree with anything that Mr. Jopek has said. I wanted to step back to a couple of the comments that Mr. Anderson said in terms of language and updating language and voice support for that. In particular, moving away from fixed specific numbers to something a little bit more flexible and variable, given that currency is variable, right? And his comment about the 12% interest rate, for example, comment about assessments being over $2,500, the length of term. I mean, loan terms in terms of length have radically changed in this country as conditions of the economy have changed and costs of things have gone up. So I didn't want that to get lost. I don't at all disagree with anything that Mr. Jopek said. I think it is, he makes a very compelling argument and statement for waiving the assessment fee. I do think that, I do also agree that the hookup fee itself, when the time comes, when those properties get hooked up, is a necessary thing.
Mr. Jopek?
Jopek to motion to waive the special assessment fees for the Olson Lane project with the expectation that they will pay the hookup fee upon failure of their own septic systems.
Barnett, second.
Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Anderson?
Well, this isn't against the gist of the motion, but when we talk about connection fees or hookup fees, if that's the same thing, I'm not sure terminology here. We've gone through a process by which connection fees can be as much as the assessment would have been. So we need to specify somehow in here what we're going to charge for a connection fee when the time comes.
Let me, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I think the gist of what Mr. Jopek's motion is, and I'll try to restate it, is the concept of availability fee is what you're waiving. The fee that's charged simply because you have sewer and water available to you that was installed at the cost. You're saying that you don't want to charge these people for the availability of that being out in front of them. Correct, Mr. Jopek?
Assuming that that is the cost of the project.
Well, let me finish now.
Yeah, I just want to clarify.
Yeah. Then the second thing I heard you say is that if and when someone does connect to the sewer, and I presume you mean water too, when they do connect to the sewer and water system, they should pay a fee at that point, which would be a connection charge. Correct, Mr. Jovic?
Correct.
So the concept is that we'd waive any availability fee and there would be a connection fee, and now you have to determine how you want to establish that connection fee, because don't confuse connection fee with the cost of your lateral, because that's what was referred to earlier by the gentleman, that he thought that some people would pay as much as $10,000 for a lateral. But then there's the connection charge, and the city would have to establish a connection charge to the existing system. And you're going to need to put a dollar amount on that connection charge. Now, you can do that when they connect, or you can do that today. I just want it very clear to the people in the room that there still would be a fee, just like the gentleman who already connected paid. There'll still be a fee when you connect, but until you connect, you would not pay any fees. Those would be waived. Isn't that what you're saying, Mr. Jopek?
So just clarifying, the connection fee and the lateral fee put together, none of that has to do with the actual project that was conducted on Olson Lane.
Well, you're going to have to dig up the road in order to make the connection.
Steve, no, the project was designed where the road won't be.
No, let me finish
interfered,
this.
so.
Okay, or you're going to have a lateral that comes off of the existing system that was put in only because we needed to have that available. So they're going to have to pay for that lateral that comes off of the main at that time. That's why I said you're going to have to figure out that fee at the time.
And that's like a fee that typically anybody who is hooking up to or getting onto city utility would be typically paying for that lateral.
Right. If you had a vacant lot in the city right now and you had sewer and water that went in front of your property, and then you decided you're going to develop that lot, if that lot then was going to hook on to the city sewer and water, there would be a charge for doing that. Correct, Wendy? Yeah, I know there would be. I won't put Wendy on the spot, okay? So that number was calculated when the project was done, so we know what the costs are. Okay, so you're going to have to put some number on that. Not necessarily today. I'm not telling you you have to do it today, but eventually you're going to have to put a number on it.
Ms. Daniel?
Well, I'm just going back to Steve's point here. Yeah, there will have to be a fee, but the way the supply chains have been working the last couple of years, the way labor costs have changed, I mean, it would be really difficult for us to put a dollar amount on that today, knowing it could be 5 years in the future, it could be 7 years in the future. We have no idea what the costs are going to be for materials or what have you at that point.
That's fine, and you can leave that alone.
There are already hookups on the land.
Yes, I understand that, sir, but those hookups haven't been paid for, except for yours. You paid for yours.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. We need to rein in out of order crosstalk.
Correct.
So getting back to the motion, Mr. Jopek, you're okay with the waiver of the availability charge now, with the understanding there would be a connection fee at the time of connection?
Okay, so the availability fee, this is kind of a new term, but to be clear, the availability fee is the fee of the project. Like the project that was built already. We're not talking about future hookup fees.
It's the cost of the sewer and water line being put in, correct?
Okay.
But not the laterals.
Not the laterals. The laterals are for the process of actually connecting to the system, but the actual process of ripping apart the road and making it available, that is what I'm waiving. I would like to waive that cost, and then when the time comes for them, if they're septic and they're whatever fails, then they will be expected to, according to city ordinance, attach to our city utility, and then they will pay that fee for that. They will not pay for the destruction and reconstruction of Olson Lane.
So that's the motion then.
Well, the motion's already there. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Mr. Anderson?
My only concern with this, I appreciate Mr. Sorensen's explanation on this, but it seems to me it's only fair that we establish, a connection charge, seems to me everybody ought to pay the same thing. And we ought to establish that somewhere early in the process, if not today.
Mr. Jopek?
That does raise a really good point. The city notified Richard that he needed to do this, and so he did it. And he's one of the people on the lane that did do this. And so he is, not that I want to put it in any sort of competitive format, he is at a disadvantage because at some point it could be more expensive, or he could be at an advantage too. And so that does raise the question of, do we want to look at like the wording on how that's going to work for them for the future? I don't know if that's necessary or not. Maybe that's the benefit of him doing it right now as opposed to 15 years from now. But that does raise a question of, is that something that we should approach?
Any other discussion for the motion on the floor? Clerk, can you repeat the motion just to make it clear?
All right, the last thing I have is Jopek motion to waive special assessment fees, but require payment of hookup fee when the time to hook up comes. Is that correct, Mr. Jopek, or did we change that?
I feel like through the conversation with Mr. Sorensen to just clarify the input of the lateral and the connection fee, which I equate to the hookup process, but yes.
We'll make sure there's a record of tonight that takes all the things we've talked about and puts it into policy, and we'll get it back to the councilman so that you all know. But for the purpose of tonight, what you're saying is no charge for the basically the availability in the road right now, but when you connect, there will be a charge. And I just talked to, Mark, and we can figure that number. So we know what it is, if it were today, to answer Eileen's question. So if somebody tomorrow said they want to connect, we would know what that number would be.
Steve, I have a question for that. So let's say house number 2 wants to connect.
Yes.
Does that come back to this board then for approval, or how does that come about?
Yes, they would come to the Public Works Director or the City Administrator and ask to be connected. We'd take a look at where it's at. We'd come up with the billing. We'd say for this much money, the connection charge, we'd go ahead and bill it.
Patrick?
Randy, I hate to put you on the spot. Do you know offhand what the tap-on fee is? I'm sorry to do that, and you may not. That's
it's approximately $6,000 that
Yeah.
Mark and I just went over.
So that's what they're talking about. Is we keep using connection fee, and I keep thinking tap-on fee because that's basically the cost to hook it up. That's what I think Mr. Jopek is talking about. That's the only thing that they would pay. The lateral going back to their house would be the homeowner's responsibility, like normal, correct? Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify. So we're throwing around a lot of terms here, and tap-on fee is a real easy one. It says it right there. So, sorry.
The suggestion I would make to the board is, due to turnover, which always happens in government, change your motion to say $6,000, a hard number. That way, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you don't have this is what this person thinks. Hard numbers in minutes make it easy. Now, it also makes it complicated because then it might be more of a profit or loss, but it gets muddy the longer time goes on until they hook up. Patrick?
Tap-on fees also, generally, if you want to change that fee, they have to come to this board to do that, to change the fee. So it should be something that's brought to you. I don't know if it's based on a formula. Mark, can you tell me if that's based on a formula here? I'm sorry, new guy. You knew you were coming up sooner or later, Mark.
No, I just looked at the bid tab and the actual cost for the sewer, the water, or the sewer and the water laterals. So I looked at the bid prices, assuming 33 feet sewer lateral. Looked at tracer wire installation, the Y, and the per foot cost for the sewer lateral. And based on the bid prices or the cost of this particular project, sewer from the main to the property line would be $2,650. Doing the same for the water, assuming 23 feet of copper water service, a corp and curb stand, comes about $2,400 for the water. So like Steve said, about $6,000 for both. That's assuming that these are just rough numbers as I was sitting back there, but that's assuming that cost, that connection fee is based on the actual material that went in from the main to the property line. That doesn't assume any restoration costs, grass restoration, anything like that, just materials, the cost of that. And I would like to specify that this is the cost on this particular project. On other projects, maybe more, other projects maybe less, but if you're looking for a baseline fee, we can average some costs from project to project through the years to get a number that the council would deem satisfactory.
Mr. Jopek?
I'm hesitant to put a formal number on it, primarily because there's a lot of shifting factors to include supply line, as she said, but also just like what the cost and stuff is going to look like in the future and in the process. And so for me, while yes, adding a hard center line or whatever to a control, if you will, is at times can be less complicated, but it can also be more complicated because we might have people who need more footage. We might have people who should have to pay more or even less for their access, their laterals, whatnot. And so what that does is it opens up to the realm of everybody paying a universal amount, whereas previously, prior to this, to my understanding, and Mr. Sorensen might correct me if I'm wrong, the laterals are largely indicative, or the cost of the lateral is indicative of how much distance has to be covered. And so by keeping it unclear and by keeping it a little bit murky, I do feel that it benefits the homeowners, but it also benefits the city in navigating how to actually give them the service when the time comes.
Just to kind of clarify my comment, by leaving it an open number, you're not protecting the homeowners, because if they go to sell their property, they're going to have something tied to their property that is hard to clarify. So it's something, if one of those homeowners want to sell their property, there's going to be something tied to it that a title company can't say, here's a hard number. You have to go to the city, get that information, which could then hurt them from a resale value, because the person buying it might not want to go into that can of worms without knowing a hard dollar amount. So that cuts both ways, just to be honest. Mr. Anderson, you had your hand up.
Yeah, maybe this is for Mr. Sorensen also, but wouldn't there be an advantage in having this kind of fee included in our city fee schedule and updated from time to time with that?
I think the advantage would be to put a formula together that could be in the ordinance, and the formula could be used, because I have a tendency to agree with Mr. Jopek, especially after my discussions with Mark with regard to how they calculated the costs, and different places are going to be different costs. This isn't a system, unless you want to change policy entirely, and that's where you just have a standard fee. Now, some communities do that, but that's not the way Rhinelander has done it. So I think the flexibility gives you what you need as a council, but I do think you should have a formula. Then everybody knows what the formula is, and that formula that doesn't change then.
Mr. Jopek?
I'm going to agree with Mr. Sorensen on that a formula would be something I'd be more in agreement to. We are essentially eating this cost on the special assessment, and that is not necessarily fun, while I do think it is good governance in this case. That being said, if we just set a standard and we shoot too low, and 15 years from now the price is much higher, and we said $6,000, we're now adding on to the cost that we're already, as the city, essentially eating. And so I guess to me, the formula to me is the best bet to make sure that, one, it is a fair deal for the city, because ultimately, yes, we got them, like, they now have access to it. And so now there is a property value where it's like you can either have septic or you can have water utility. And so from that point on, we're going to cover the cost of this special assessment, and now it's up to them, according to the formula, which sounds like it's a pretty fair formula, that'll shake itself out 10, 15 years down the line.
Mr. Sorensen, should we first make that formula and then attach it to this?
Well, I think you want to get done with Olson Lane, and I think we can bring back the formula, because every project's going to have a little bit different, but I can't design a formula tonight, but I do think you need to move on. But that's not my vote. So you asked me to give you my opinion. My opinion is we probably need to do it, but I don't know that we need to do it before you pass on the motion that was made tonight, because that motion is only for Olson Lane as I understand it.
Mr. Barnett?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, if we can pass the motion tonight and then direct Mr. Sorensen to come up with that formula for within the next couple of meetings coming up to approve and attach to the ordinance.
I think that's something Mark, Randy, and Patrick could do.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, a little cheaper.
Oh, okay, yeah, a lot cheaper, actually.
Mr. Holt?
No offense, you're worth it.
Can we please call the question then?
Good. Mr. Anderson?
Can we please call the question? That ends discussion so that we can have a vote.
Not unless we vote on that.
Then
My only question is, where's the money come from? It seems like we need to be aware of what we're doing, either to the wastewater fund or to the general budget or wherever the money's coming from.
So my understanding, Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, the checks have already been cut. That's already been coming out of the reserves of those utilities. So that's something that's one of the reasons why our utility reserves are as low as they are currently.
That's correct.
So with that, clerk, please take the roll call.
Karen Mikulowski,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to 10D. 10DI, which would be Planning Commission. This was one of two candidates that showed interest in this. This is someone who's retired in our community that showed interest and wanted to serve on it. Mr. Holt?
Motion to approve mayoral appointments to various boards and commissions. Number one, Plan Commission, Lori Lenton, term ending 4/2026. This is a 3-year term. Item number two, Rhinelander Housing Authority, Dennis Nelson, term ending 4/28. Excuse me, 4/2026, not 4/2020.
Before there's a second, just to make it clear, Dennis would be a reappointment. He was the only person who showed interest in that position.
Okay, and that is also a 5-year term?
Correct.
Okay.
Daniel second.
Any discussion? Not seeing. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain? Motion approved. Moving on to 10E, discuss and/or action for 2023-19, approving the waive fee for Boys and Girls Club event at Hodag Park. I don't know, Austin, if you have anything you'd like to speak on this?
This was just a request, and it should be in the packet here, for waiving of the fee for renting the shelter at the Hodag Park Band Shell.
Do you know what that fee would be roughly?
So that'd be the $50 fee to rent the band shelter, and it's the $100 deposit.
Daniel, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-19 to approve the waiving of the fees for a Boys and Girls Club of the Northwoods event on August 18th, 2023 at the Hodag Park Band Shell.
Barnett, second.
Any discussion? Mr. Anderson?
Is this something that they'll be doing every year or a one-time event?
This was just a request for this event. They could request it next year, but they just indicated for this event for this year.
Okay. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson. Aye. Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Karen Mikulowski.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 10F, discuss and/or action for Resolution 2023-20 approving new liquor license for Quality Inn Hotel and Conference Center. I would first refer to the clerk.
So a new company bought the Quality Inn. So by state statute, they are forced to request a new alcohol beverage license. One note for this one, they are pending their fire inspection, so I would recommend to the council that whatever action you take, make it pending passing the fire inspection.
Mr. Holt?
I will make a motion to approve new liquor license application for the Quality Inn Hotel and Conference Center pending approval from the fire department for inspection.
Joe Peck, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Karen Mikulowski.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to 10G, discuss and/or action for 2023-21 approving, authorizing, directing the mayor to sign a grant agreement between WIDA for the community development spaces with Art Start. Mr. Barnett?
I make a motion to pass Resolution 2023-21 approving, authorizing, and directing the mayor to sign a grant agreement with the WEDC for a community development investment Vibrant Spaces grant.
Anderson, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. Moving on to 10H, discuss and/or action for Resolution 2023-22, the write-off non-collectible personal property taxes. Refer to the clerk.
All right, so the as you see in the packet, there is a write-up. Mariah and I have been working extensively on this. The last time that the Common Council has written off any delinquent property taxes or weights and measures was back, I think it was 2019 or 2020, so it's been a while. So we kind of outline in a spreadsheet there of what needs to be written off. There are some things that are uncollectible due to state statute. There are some things that we are able to collect utilizing the chargeback system through the state, but that can't be done until the first quarter of 2024. And it will break down. You can see all the different groups and the reasons of why we're doing so. One note that I did hand out another version of that spreadsheet earlier. There was just one transcription error that we spotted after the packet went out. It does not change the total of the write-off, just two numbers went in the wrong column between the write-off and what we can recover through the chargeback system. Once we go through and do this, our AR system will be updated and we won't be sending out letters every month to folks that have just kind of fell off the face of the earth and kind of clean up our rolls.
Daniel, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-22 to approve the request from the city clerk to write off uncollectible personal property taxes.
Holt,
Barnett.
second.
I'll give it to David. He's good.
Holt,
He's a
second.
good guy.
Any discussion? Mr. Anderson?
So this resolution includes all of the ones that are listed on this form?
Correct. The total that you would be writing off is $19,256.29, which is highlighted in yellow. And you can see in the write-up, vast majority of that comes from three different groups. The other ones are real small amounts that have just been collecting interest over the years that we can either no longer collect due to state statute, or there's just no one to collect from because the business is closed and there's nobody to send letters to anymore.
Not seeing any other discussion. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Karen Mikulowski.
Aye.
Motion approved. Moving on to 10I, discuss and/or action, resolution 2023-23, approving, authorizing, directing mayor to sign contract to amending the state of Wisconsin weights and measures inspection program. Refer to Austin.
So we received a letter from the state of Wisconsin indicating that there will be a price change with their weights and measures contract, and they just require each municipality to sign off on this.
Daniel, make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-23, approving, authorizing, and directing the mayor to sign a contract amendment with the state of Wisconsin weights and measures inspection program.
Mikulowski, second.
Mr. Anderson for discussion.
Yeah, I saw the hourly rate went up, and then in the contract, it has a fixed amount. And is that based on past experience of how many hours they require?
Let me scroll to that part of the contract so I can see what you're referring to.
6,000 something.
Page 65.
I believe it comes out of 9 days worth of work is what they're looking at when I divided it out. So it's not very much that they do. They don't have to do a ton. But if you read the memo that was attached in there, they kind of sussed it out.
It said they went from annual to biennial. So does that raise it on one hand and cut down on the other, sort of?
I took it as I'm sorry, please.
Does that balance in some way?
I took it as they raised the cost overall. That's what it was. So I think they went from 400 to 750. So it looked like you got about 9 days worth of work.
I don't know if Mr. Jopek, is still...
I'm still putting it together, but like how much money are we talking here in an annual? Like this says 400, it's going from 400 per day to 750 per day, and I'm not sure if I missed the reading, and I might have.
It's like $6,500.
$6,500, okay. And that's under the 750, correct? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just clarifying.
That's according to their contract.
Okay.
Not seeing any other discussion. Clerk, please take the roll call.
David Holt.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Karen Mikulowski.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye. Moving on to 10J, discuss and/or action for resolution 2023-24, task order 30 with Town and Country. I refer to Patrick on this.
Yeah, apparently a few years ago you got an LRIP grant to do some work on some certain streets here are listed on the resolution. This is the beginning process of the engineering. It needs to be done pretty quick here within the next few years, otherwise you lose the grant.
Barnett, I make a motion to approve resolution 2023-24, approving task order 30 from Town and Country Engineering.
Anderson, second.
Okay, Mr. Kelly.
I just have a question. Is that Evergreen Street or Evergreen Court?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, I have to refer back.
Dole to Rose.
Mark, do you know which one that was, if it was Evergreen Street or?
I'm thinking Court, but I would be guessing on that.
It's right in the same area.
Evergreen Court is to the south. This is Evergreen Street.
Thank you.
Mr. Jopek?
Sounds like there's grants involved in this, and so I'm sure this maybe is a pedestrian question, but there will be no, do we know if there's going to be any potential special assessments with this project?
So it is a utility project and a road project, but it's not adding new service. All these houses currently are hooked up to our system, to my knowledge. Is that correct, Mark?
That's correct.
So it would be very similar to our Oneida Street project, our Timber Drive project. I also believe Town and Country is the one who got us this LRIP grant, so we thought it was appropriate to award them the contract since they're the ones fighting to get us money in this case. Any other discussions? No? Clerk, please take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Karen Mikulowski.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to 10K, discuss and/or action plan approving the quote from Design Tech for design services. Refer to our Fire Chief, Brian.
Good evening. So last council meeting, I kind of alluded to the fact that we're having issues with our building down at the fire station. In the packet, you'll see that we've done some conditional reporting from some engineers within our stalls, on our floors. One stall where we hold our ambulances, the floor has been in terms condemned. It's undermined. The utility chase that goes through it that we drive over every day is falling apart. So we've had to use those 4 stalls for storage now at this point, so we're double stacking our trucks We also have, which we've mentioned in the past about our HVAC system. Our HVAC system has been piecemealed together through the years of additions, and it's not efficient at all. It affects our members deeply when they sleep. They sleep in 80+ degree temperatures in the bunk rooms, which is not a healthy environment for them. There's no air exchange because our HVAC system's under serviced. The ARCAD did an engineer drawing of our HVAC system, which never existed before this, and you can see he's done a very comprehensive report for us, and it comes down to tearing out what we have there now and putting in an entire new system. At some point in time, we have to say enough is enough of putting money into these buildings. The police department has the same, obviously we share the same building, so they have the same issues going on with their HVAC system. It no longer serves the needs of the fire department, and I'm sure Lloyd would be able to attest that the police department no longer serves their needs either. I think it'd be irresponsible of me to sit here and tell you that I need a new fire station and that's it. I think the more responsible thing to do for this city is to start looking at a consolidated municipal building, which would be police, fire, EMS, and city hall. This design proposal gives us an opportunity to sit down with design tech and figure out what that need is for us, to figure out what the footprint is, to start sourcing land to look at what we need and what it will cost us to go that direction. I'm willing to put in the time and effort for it to seek after grants and to have as little budgetary impact on our taxpayers as possible. I've been very forthcoming with that as an advocate for not impacting our budget and our taxpayers, especially with adding personnel. And in the past, I've done most things within budget. So I'd like to stay true to that and not to go to the dirty R word.
So Brian, two questions. So one, it looks like you're requesting 2,500.
Correct, yeah.
And is that coming out of your guys' budget, or how do you?
Yeah, that'll come out of our building and maintenance budget. I have that budgeted for.
Mr. Anderson?
Is this, the services you're asking for, all aimed at the idea of a new building of some sort, or will it give us some ideas of how we should do parts of it at different times?
This will be a new building altogether.
Mr. Barnett?
Barnett, I'd like to make a motion to approve the quote from Design Tech and Design Services.
Hold second.
Any other discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Karen Mikulowski.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 10L, discussion of update on the skate park. I refer to Patrick.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So met with Melinda Childs from Art Start. The NEA, the National Endowment for the Arts, has given a preliminary okay to the grant. It did seek $100,000. They've given 50, so we had to move the budget down a little bit. Wendy and myself and Melinda spoke about this at some length and came up with a budget that worked and got them everything that they wanted to get in there. I know Randy has put out the RFQ for the skate park for engineering, so that is where we are at right now.
Any questions for Patrick? Okay, not seeing. Moving on to number 11, would entertain us receiving the reports.
Daniel, make a motion to to accept the monthly reports from departments as presented in the packet.
Hold second.
Mr. Holt?
Yeah, I wanted to, I don't have any specific questions about the monthly reports, but I wanted to make a general statement just because of a conversation I had recently. And before the plague, it was very common for department heads to come and give a verbal report. And since then, this is kind of pro forma. We make a motion, we seconded it, and then we pass it without any conversation. I simply wanted to point out that, at least my understanding of this, so somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, that this is a very, if somebody on the council has a question about something or would like an update on a project that is ongoing, this is the appropriate time in the meeting to ask for that department head to weigh in on that particular one. And I had sort of taken that for granted because I started on council and people would stand up and give those verbal reports. And we're there sort of inviting people to ask questions, essentially. And now that's not the case. So I wanted to make sure any new members to the council, understood that was, and feel comfortable just going in and asking questions during this period.
Mr. Jopek?
I just have an observation / question. So last meeting we talked about the library, the district library appointments, and I had sent an email to you and Austin about inquiring about when that meets. That is something that, like, me and I'm sure there's probably others out there that might be interested. However, one thing that I found kind of inhibiting was that is 1 o'clock on a Tuesday, which is difficult for most people to get to, at least people my age. And so I just wanted to drop a line, just say like, hey, if that ever changes, let a guy know, and it'd be cool to know. All right.
Okay, so there was a motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain. Reports received. Moving on to 12, which is future agenda items. Anything anyone would like to add? Okay. Not seeing that. It would be moving on to 13. Our next regular meeting would be May 22nd, 2023 at 6 p.m. It is 7:13, meeting adjourned.